Hello and welcome to the Cryptocurrency News Channel. Going to give you another Chinese COVID update. And wouldn't you know it, the Chinese government said there has been 90,000 cases with only an amazing 19 deaths since, that's the latest report, anyways, since this COVID thing broke out and they released all the restrictions. Well, that's funny because outside sources say there's more like 600 million cases in China. And just from relatives and friends, hearing like people who've gotten infected and people who've died, there's been a lot more than 19. So I'm pretty sure my relatives and friends don't know everyone in China. So there's probably a lot more. And the thing is, like, by the way they're actually reporting things and some of the regional reports that have differed from the central government reports, there's definitely more than 90,000 cases. It wouldn't even be a thing if it was 90,000 cases in China. So it is actually pretty close to 5 to 600 million cases in the month that they've actually released restrictions due to the protests. Obviously, the Chinese government is like sticking to like certain types of numbers. Only like certain types of deaths are actually listed as COVID deaths, even though COVID does trigger a lot of bodily reactions, especially in older people like diabetes stuff like that. They don't count those as COVID-induced deaths. Only if you have a very specific type of lung infection, they basically consider it a COVID infection or a COVID death. And the thing is, like, when you actually report cause of death, if you report that lung infection, they don't go ahead with a cremation. They have to investigate your family for the death. So the thing is, no one really wants to be investigated because that's a big hassle and that could turn out really bad for you. So they just eventually sign the document saying that it wasn't a lung infected and therefore not a COVID death. So that's why it's actually underreported. As for the 19 deaths, if it was only 19 deaths, I don't think anyone would notice. But from internal reports, the hospital beds are overflowing. The death beds on the hospitals are overflowing. And the crematoriums are running 24/7 and still can't process nearly the number of bodies coming in. So you can tell it's a lot more deaths than that. But outside of that, the most crazy thing right now is that the country, or Xi Jinping, the God Emperor Xi Jinping, has decreed that everyone should catch COVID now. This is actually true. He's like, everyone should catch COVID so this can be over, and by March we can work on the economy. And in fact, he has actually decreed that if you don't catch COVID, you are being unpatriotic because you are dragging your country down and making everyone have to wait. Now, the thing is, he hasn't told anyone if he's caught COVID yet. So Xi Jinping, that God Emperor, he might be unpatriotic, but since he's part of the command structure, I guess you just have to believe whatever he says. My guess is like he's already gotten all the westernized vaccines, which aren't actually available to the rest of the populace. And the Chinese ones don't really work. He's gotten the westernized vaccines and the medications himself, but obviously it's not available to the rest of the Chinese public to save face. He doesn't want to admit that the foreign vaccines, the foreign medicines are actually better. So he's not. And then like if he does that, it might decrease confidence in the government and make people point fingers at him. So he's not going to make that stuff available. And since like he can shut China off from the rest of the world, that's what he's actually going to do. So we don't really know if he's actually caught COVID or not. But this decree right now, he's like, you know what? Everyone should just catch COVID right now and get it over with. So, like everyone would have resistances by March, April. And by then, we could actually work on rebuilding the economy. And if you don't catch COVID, now you are unpatriotic for not catching COVID and letting China move on. Now, let me remind you, just more than a month ago, if you caught COVID, your house was boarded up. And basically, like, essentially, if you caught COVID, it was like the plague. So now it's like a 360 turnaround because he wants, like, people just to completely forget about that, which I don't think people actually really have. And he wants to basically just get this economic turmoil over with so he can build his glorious Chinese empire again. So that's what the situation is like in China. In about a month, it's turned from like, oh, you cannot catch COVID, and if you do, you're this evil plague bearer, and we have to board you up inside your house, to everyone should catch COVID. And if you don't catch COVID, you're unpatriotic, and you need to be excluded from everything. So that's how things in China are going right now, if you're wondering. So that's the news for today. Let me know what you think. Like and subscribe. Hit that bell notifications button. Thank you and have a nice day.